Rhett. Good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
This is our first podcast, official one, so this is fun to do with you. And I thought it'd be fun doing it with you too because I know you well. We know what we like to talk about. So I think this will be fun, and I want people to hear. I want them to hear the conversations we have with each other with nobody else kind of around, because I feel like we're able to kind of work on some pretty neat things. So
within reason, of course.
You just be you.
Okay, all right.
All right. If people don't like us, that's whatever. All right. So first of all, tell me a little bit about your testimony, how you've received Christ. I've heard your story about growing up in a Christian home, Rankin Valley Christian, but also learning more about the Lordship of Christ at Masters. So if you can kind of work through that. I think your testimony is real similar to a lot of people that have grown up in the church.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because I definitely have that testimony. Thank you. I have that testimony, that classic testimony, a church kid testimony. My parents have an interesting testimony too. They weren't saved when they got married. And my dad really had a really loose view of marriage, was just like, whatever, if it doesn't work out, I'll just get divorced, no big deal. And only wanted 2 kids. So they had my 2 sisters, and then my dad's like, no, we are not having any more kids. I don't want to spend any more money on kids. I don't want anything to do with kids and just the sacrifice that it took to have kids. I'm not saying this to speak ill of my parents, because then they became Christians, and
what's up, Clyde?
That's my dad's name. And when they became Christians, my dad wanted more kids, and his whole life was different, and now marriage was different, and everything was different. So, I'm even the product of a household becoming Christian. So it's an interesting. My whole upbringing was different. So, as far as that goes, there was never a time in my life when I would say I didn't believe, and never a time in my life when church wasn't a priority, and fellowship wasn't a priority, and all those things weren't a priority. And it's one of those things. I look at my parents and the life they lived as Christians. We went to Assemblies of Church of God in Christ Church. Which is more on the charismatic side of things, and just a lot of different views that my parents don't hold now, but they're young believers and just trying to live life, and so that was kind of my initial upbringing. So that's kind of the long answer to say I kind of don't know when I got saved, except I've asked my dad about it, and I remember my dad telling me no, I remember you came to me, you approached me about these things, you wanted to pray about them. I think I was around 5 years old, 4, 5, or 6, somewhere right in there. And so sometimes I think, well, maybe I was a Christian, but then, just not having a real firm foundation from church. I'm amazed how much God has provided for me. But then going away to Masters, and you know how it was at Masters. I mean, it was like a total drink from the fire hose. If you go from not having much biblical underpinning to that. And I just see how God kind of took me in steps to get there. There was a period of time where we left that church that was Assemblies of God. We went to a Lutheran church, which was way liberal. I don't even know if the pastor was a Christian type of liberal. All the way to then finding Hessel, reconnecting with a friend and going to Hessel Church as a senior in high school and getting plugged in there, and just God providing friendships through that and growth through that, and then going to Masters and just how crazy it was that that God took me there. And sorry, I'm getting distracted by it now. That's perfect. That God took me there, and then going to Masters and really growing in my faith there. And I'll never forget. It was a sermon that C.W. Smith, who was one of the professors there, was preaching on, being divorced from your sin. And the illustration being that when people get divorced, back in the old days, they would take out ads in newspapers in the same way you would announce a marriage, you would announce a divorce, because the idea was, I'm no longer responsible for so-and-so's debts. We are divorced. You can't come to me for their deaths. And that's the idea of the cross. There's a legal writ of certificate that's nailed to the cross, as Paul talks, these list of requirements against us. It's public declaration. No, this person is no longer responsible for these debts. And I'm like, wow, and I don't know if that was just a fresh understanding that God was digging up in my heart, or if that was the fruit of salvation. I don't know. I go back and forth on it, but
you were pretty convinced when I had first met you that you felt like you weren't saved through Rincon Valley Christian. You got saved at Masters.
Right.
Now you sound like you're changing a little more.
I know, it's because I grow in my understanding of it.
Okay.
Because you see people with weak faith. You know, and I just think...
You're looking at one.
Yeah, right. We all have weak faith at some point. But I'm saying, as we minister to people...
Yeah.
As we've grown in our Christian faith, and we see people that are maybe weak in their faith, and you want to just encourage them, like, no, it's okay that you have weak faith. It's not the strength of your faith that's the issue. It's Christ that's the issue. So that's why when I look back on it, as I grow even theologically now, I think, maybe I was a believer, and it was just weak faith.
Okay.
But again, I don't know. But really, it should be an encouragement, I hope, to parents of kids that grow up through church that listen, just keep praying for them, and God will, at his appointed time,
do his work.
Do his work,
And the main thing is you believe right now.
Yeah, that's the main thing.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's not a point in time that I think we should necessarily even point to.
Yeah.
Because that can happen where people think, I've done that.
Yeah.
Well, the Bible doesn't have a "I've done that" wording. It has a "I am doing that" wording. Yeah. So I think that's the encouraging part for people, just to, you don't know what God's doing in someone's life. And
how many times were you baptized?
Twice. Yeah, I'm an Anabaptist.
Did I baptize you second? Did I baptize you the second time?
Yeah, you did the same time. Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay. Cool. Well, you're definitely saved if I baptized you the second time.
Yes.
Oh, man. All right. Here Paul says in 1 Corinthians, I don't even know who I baptized.
Right. I'm glad I baptized none of you.
And I feel that way now after being a pastor for I can't remember everybody. Thanks, Paul.
That's true. Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
Good. Let's move ahead here. Why did you want to go to seminary? And I want to talk about Steve Fernandez's influence in your life a little bit. So maybe he was the influence you went to seminary, why you went to Cornerstone, but kind of talk about that, God's working in your life to get you going in that direction. Yeah,
well, it's funny because I applied to Masters and I was accepted to Masters, and I was going to go to Masters seminary. But I didn't want to uproot my family. We were thinking the kids were coming sooner than they ended up coming. So we thought, well, let's, a friend actually recommended that I check out what's going on in Vallejo.
Okay.
And I was like...
It was new.
It was new, yeah. And I think Steve would always tell me, he's like, you were the first person to apply that didn't go to that church.
Oh.
You were the first application we got that didn't go to that church.
Yeah.
So he'd always tell me that.
Yeah.
And if you know Steve, and I wish people could know Steve.
Yeah.
Just he was so much fun.
Yeah.
And he was such a real guy, and he was such a goofball.
Yeah.
I mean, he was as serious as he was about the word and preaching and all that. He was a very unique man, and I like that. I'm attracted to those kind of people.
Yeah.
That's why we're friends. So I loved him, just meeting him just right away. I appreciated him right away, and I ended up going
this interview's about you, but let me tell you a quick Steve story.
Which is fine. That's more interesting than talking about me.
Because Steve would come up from Vallejo and have lunch with me, and then one day we were at a Mexican restaurant in Roanoke Park. It's Krispy Kreme now, or El Farolito.
Oh no, El Torito.
El Torito, yeah. So after we're done eating lunch, he's like, Lance, I got to show you this. You got to listen to this rap I've been listening to. I'm like, dude, you're like 60. What are you doing listening to rap? So we go into his beat up minivan. We're listening to this rap and he's pumping it. It's like, yeah, and I'm like, bro. But it was theological.
Right,
it was about redemption, and these guys are preaching it through rap. He was so impressed.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just thought so interesting. And then that was the last time I saw him.
Yeah. We all have that last time we saw Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was such an encouraging guy.
Yeah.
And what I appreciate about Steve too, again, this is supposed to be about me, but Steve, I loved his testimony as he was talking about as he got older, his desire for preaching wasn't waning, it was getting stronger. I thought that was super fascinating. There's not many careers that people have that they want to keep advancing, and like even those that get to the top of their game, it seems like they get a little sick of it after a while, and I never sensed that with Steve, which was always encouraging. Always encouraging.
Yeah. So you went to seminary.
Right.
Anything in seminary you wanted to talk about? Anything?
Yeah, it was just a good time. I was definitely...
The difference between my seminary and your seminary was I feel like my seminary masters really geared men to become preachers, expositional preachers of the word, where I feel like Cornerstone Seminary focused more on becoming a pastor.
Right. No, I would agree with you in the sense that they added that pastoral side of it.
Okay.
But they were super big on exegetical. So we had all the languages.
Yeah.
All the theological. Yeah. We had tons of that stuff.
Yeah.
We couldn't get through without taking languages.
Yeah.
Same as masters. In fact, they really modeled it after masters.
Yeah.
The only thing that they really tried to emphasize was they wanted teachers to be from the pulpit. They wanted pastors to come teach at the seminary, or people who have been pastors. Just they really wanted,
rather than just academic.
Right.
Yeah.
They didn't want just the academics. They really wanted it, all of it, to have a pastoral flavor to it, which I appreciate. I think that's healthy.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. One of the things that I remember Steve Fernandez telling me, because it was you and Josh and some other guys were going down there, and Steve would say, man, your guys are just fun. They laugh a lot. They bring like light to the classroom. Like, and I really, first of all, that was an interesting perspective that he had from our guys. I don't even know what really that means. But anyway, we do, I feel like, have a good time. And I don't know if I don't know who's leading all that, but I know, like, between the guys we know in ministry and stuff, we really enjoy each other. We laugh a lot. Why do you think that is? Why do you think Steve would say that? Like, because I think there's some people out there going, man, I wish I was more fun to be around. I'm like an Eeyore, like, how can I be more fun? How can I be more like those guys who just enjoy laughing? And like, what's behind all that? Is there something we learned from that?
Well, I think first off, I got to go back to my family.
Okay.
Right. My
Your parents are funny.
My parents
always
are
laugh funny.
Yeah. My dad is a classic wiseacre. Yeah. And I remember when he was dating my mom, they're engaged, and this was back, in the day, right? Like, you don't marry outside of your faith. So,
you know what I mean? You don't marry outside your family.
No, not outside your, yeah. No, we were in the South. No, you don't marry outside of your faith.
Oh, okay, cool.
So, my grandmother, who was not my grandmother, my mom's aunt, I think is what it was, and she was from Norway. Like hardcore Lutheran, big old yaws, she sounded like the Swedish chef, sort of thing, And she's like, oh, Clyde, where do you go to church, And he's like, I go to synagogue every once in a while, but, it's not that important to me. And he doesn't clarify it's a joke. Yeah. He just lets it hang out there that he's Jewish, And he's not, but he just messed with people. Yeah. So I think it's in my DNA. Okay. Number one. Okay. And my grandfather, my mom's dad, was the same way. He was just constantly just screwing with like people. Okay. And he was a serious guy too. He's like I think at the time it's called the Warden of Inmate Affairs at San Quentin. So he had like kind of a position there, but he was just always just a funny guy. I remember watching video of him. They bought bikes for my sisters for Christmas, and there's this old, Super 8 film of it. Yeah. And my sisters are like, "Oh, thank you." He's like, "Well, the bikes aren't free. You got to pay me for the air and the tires." And they're like, "What?" So it's just messing around all the time. just a lot of fun. So I was raised around a lot of fun people.
Yeah.
My grandfather was a lot of fun. My parents were a lot of fun. So I think there's that aspect of it where everyone I knew was funny.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all my parents' friends were a riot. I cannot everything in my life was always a party we're going to,
Yeah.
and people were laughing and talking
Yeah.
loud, and
Yeah.
and that's just was how I was raised.
Yeah.
It wasn't the typical WASP, upbringing where everyone is very prim and proper. I just wasn't raised that way. So,
Yeah.
and that's just kind of soaked into me.
Okay.
But along with that, it's funny because I'm super serious about things too.
Okay.
I mean, how serious I am about the scriptures and about the gospel and about my faith, and so, but I just still think humor is a good way to draw people in, and I don't know. I think it's
healing, right?
It's healing, yeah. It's healing.
It's good, yeah.
I think that's a way to look at it. But I don't even know if I put that much thought into it. And sometimes I wish I was a more serious person. It's funny. People look at us and they say, "I wish I was more lighthearted." Sometimes I think, "Man, I wish I was more
serious."
More serious.
Yeah.
Because people can sometimes not take us seriously because we come across as. Well, I shouldn't say we. Some people can sometimes take me not as seriously because I come across as a goofball, and I feel sometimes like I lose a voice with people sometimes, but for me, I can't help myself.
You just keep being you.
That's all I can do. That's all I can be. And Steve Fernandez told me that, like you can only minister to the people God has brought into your life that will hear your voice.
Yeah.
So it's good.
And I feel like I kind of know your tickle points.
Yeah, that's true.
So I know how to kind of push you.
Like just saying something I shouldn't. Yeah,
hey,
it's not hard.
Hey, Rhett, tell that joke. And he'll really tell it. I'm like, yeah. Then he gets mad at me. It's my fault. Anyway, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Good. We have a good time, and I think it's healthy, and
Yeah, I do too.
Cool. FBC, First Baptist Church. Rhett's our chairman of our elder board. You've been chairman for how long now?
Well, when did Bob leave? Bob Carlson. 2-3 years ago?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
2 years.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
2 years, let's call it.
Yeah. And for those just getting to know about our church a little bit, we have 6 elders right now. 7, adding Nestor.
Mm-hmm.
There's 7 now.
Mm-hmm.
And Rhett's chairman of the elder board. I want to talk about church a little bit too, with one of our topics. So what we do when we evaluate our church is we talk about we call it SWOT: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So I want to just give you some time to talk about each one of those. So just a quick thing on what do you think the strength of our church is, weakness of our church, opportunities that our church has, and threats that our church might be facing. So first of all, strengths of our church. What do you think is a strength of First Baptist Church of Windsor?
I think we have a good group of people that are hungry for the Word.
Okay.
The people that come here, they're not going to stick around if they're not interested in the Word of God, in my opinion. Because we preach it. A lot of what we do is about the Word.
Scriptures,
yeah. About the Scripture here in church, which is what I'm about. So I think that's definitely a strength.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Okay.
One of our weaknesses, I think, it's hard because that question I wasn't given beforehand, so now I have to think on the fly.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. I think maybe some of our weaknesses, we could maybe be better administratively.
Okay.
It's one of those things. Administration, for me, being kind of the free spirit that I am, and I think you and I definitely resonate with that.
Yeah.
Administration can be like a yoke sometimes, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. Trying to figure out how to use administration properly. Mm-hmm. So I think that's good.
We just hired an administration.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah.
What's your title, Jake?
Director of administration. Well, good. Well, we're appreciating you more.
Yeah.
Oh, I am anyway.
So if it's a weakness now, it's Jake's fault.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we hired you. We're gonna roll this up and pin it on you.
This is really about you, Jake.
Exactly.
We're gonna turn this now.
Don't mess this up. This is just water.
This is our commercial for the day. Rhett's drinking Crystal Geyser water.
I'm not trying to advertise for it.
Well, we're just thinking if we need to make some more money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Crystal Geyser sponsored this religious talk for sure.
That came out wrong. Anyway, we're just gonna keep it in there. We can edit stuff out too if we need.
No, that's good. Perfect.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
But I don't really like to because
that's not fun.
it's not fun.
Yeah, it's gotta be real. So
administration,
strengths, weaknesses, opportunities. I think right now.
What do you think? Well, let's get back to the weakness. What do you think administration administration weakness, but what is that like? What would that look like to become a strength or just become not a weakness? Mm-hmm. Better communication.
I think better communication.
Okay.
Better maybe promotion of stuff.
Okay.
I think just organizing things maybe a little bit better.
Okay.
Because people that are organized, that are good at that have that strength, and it's funny, it's like a gift of administration. It's talked about in the Bible. I mean, it really helps things. It really, and the idea of the administration is not to just provide boundaries all the time. It's really to provide lanes where ministry can happen, I think, and just to latch on to those people that maybe you butt heads with because they're more administratively minded.
Yeah.
And just harness them and keep butting heads.
They actually work instead of laugh all the time.
Right. It's a total bummer. I know it is. But those people that you butt heads with, just to realize that those administrative people need to really cherish the people that aren't that way, because a lot of times they're the ones that can draw people in.
Yeah.
And the people that can draw people in really need to appreciate the administratively minded people, because they can make a path for that to happen and to be really effective. Yeah. So just really honor and respect one another in that, because I feel like they're both needed.
Yeah, appreciating both.
Someone's got to set up chairs, right? Someone's got to, and not that we don't set up chairs well. That's not the point. But the point is there's always things that need to happen that to make a space and an environment welcoming to people and all of that. And some people have that giftedness.
Good. Yeah. All right, how about opportunities? What are some opportunities that the church has, First Baptist Church in particular?
I think right now the whole coronavirus thing, that's a huge opportunity.
And a threat,
huh? Is it though?
We'll get into this later.
Okay. But I think that is an opportunity. The idea of dealing with anything catastrophic is an opportunity for the church.
Okay.
So I think it's important for us to grab hold of that if we can. I think there's a lot of opportunity for Windsor, for our church specifically, just within Sonoma County. Obviously, it's very unchurched, very unchristian, so there's tons of gospel opportunity. I think there's that. But that's coupled with some of those, that coronavirus thing. People are scared right now. So if people are afraid, if they are worried about their lives, that's an opportunity. We can talk about, well, why? What is that?
Yeah.
Why? You have something to lose, obviously. That's why you're afraid. So just to think through that with
did you ever see that first little Facebook thing I put out?
No. Oh, yeah.
You know how many people have watched that?
No, I watched it though, but
960.
Wow. Yeah.
Which tells me
it's more than people at our church.
Yeah, so people are wanting to know more about what's going on, maybe from a biblical perspective, and how to think through some of these things. That's an interesting deal to me. And I also think one of the reasons I wanted to do podcasts today with you was thinking, hey, a lot of people are just looking for something to listen to, something to watch that can be encouraging, and not just Fox News or Press Democrats. So that was one of the reasons, like, hey, let's do this, And so, cool.
Yeah,
we're trying to take advantage of this opportunity that's in front of us. Okay, how about threats? What are some threats to the church?
I think a threat to the church, as I just think about it in my own life, is, I was actually thinking about this today. Not about threats, but I was thinking about it in a different way.
While you're on break at pace, or
while I'm driving? I'm outside sales, so I drive around. Okay. While I'm driving, I just think. Yeah. So I was thinking today about like revival.
Okay.
You know, a lot of times I want revival because it would make society better.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some okayness to that, right? Like, but when you think about it, like, what if, really think about it, what if 10% of all of Sonoma County got saved?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how would that change the voting block? Like, that would change a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And really, and what if 10% of the nation? And just how, like, how would that change things? And society would be better and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
That's all self-serving.
Mm-hmm.
I want a revival because it would make my life a little more comfortable.
Or your girl's life.
Or my girl's life
Yeah.
a little more comfortable.
Yeah.
And a little easier to endure.
Yeah.
That's not focused on God's glory
Right.
in that. So I think one of the things that we are really easily drawn into, and it's just a weakness of us, is as a self-centeredness, even in our Christian beliefs and activity, that we really are just thinking about ourselves in that. And that's a threat, I think, to the advancement of the gospel and to the advancement of the kingdom of God.
Okay.
And not that we shouldn't, not that I'm promoting an altruism that we do things regardless of how it affects us. I don't believe in that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think many times we need to check our motives on a lot of what we do, because a lot of what we do is so self-serving and we don't even realize it.
Mm-hmm.
As even as Christians, that we don't realize how we say we're serving the Lord, but really we're serving ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And just to think what that looks like, and
Mm-hmm.
to be aware of that, and to plead before the Lord
Yeah.
about that as sin, and to confess that when it's in our minds as sin, and to really try and have those pure motives before the Lord. And none of us will have ever 100% pure motives.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not trying to
Yeah.
lay that out there as a goal, but
Yeah.
the idea is, does that make sense?
Yeah, let me take that concept and I'm going to kind of push your life right into that, in the sense of you chair the elder board, you preach for our church every once in a while, you preach at other churches, you lead college group on Thursday nights, you help in the worship band from time to time. Your wife serves in the children's ministry.
I am a Hebrew of Hebrews, according to that list.
Yeah, and the church pays you
zero
this
right.
much, you know. So like, what makes you tick that way, that you want to serve the church and put this time and effort into the church?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is interesting, because I certainly get out of it more than I ever put into it.
Okay.
Right.
And you learned that, like, as you began serving, you're like, man, this is really good for me.
Right. Yeah. So, first off, I'm blessed by people that are blessed when I preach.
Okay.
You know, the people come up and encourage me, and I
that's
appreciate
the coolest
it.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Like, wow. I mean, and it really brings out that sacred trust idea that it as much as it encourages me, it also terrifies me that you better not say something that they're going to go sideways.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
so there's a little bit of that too.
Good fear. Yeah.
But, you know, when Jesus talked to his disciples and he said, no man has given up lands and farms and brothers and houses and, you know, mother and father, who will not receive 100-fold, both in this life, along with persecutions, and in eternal life and the life to come. I think there's a real sense in which anything that you're sowing into the church and into the kingdom of God, you reap in this life. I mean, you just really do. So that's why I say I'm not trying to push altruism out there, but at the same time,
can you give like a guy like me that went to Emelina High School, like a definition of altruism? Like,
doing things without any regard for yourself, that you're just doing the right thing because it's right. When that's altruism, at least my understanding of it. You know, someone smarter than me out there, because I don't know what the RBC is gonna I'm sure have a little.
What do you think, Jake? Is that a good definition?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so he's liking it. Okay.
If we only had a device that we could, well, it just took about a dozen pictures of it. If we only had a device that we could look that up.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Leave it over. Okay, so
the point is that doing it just because it's right, when in Scripture, I don't necessarily see that. God promises to reward us for what we do, and He seeks to motivate us with the reward for what we do.
Is this the Brad Carlson?
Yeah. So Brad and I laugh about this all the time, and I didn't mean to call out Brad.
I think you called him out twice in your sermon.
I did. Well, one of them was a good illustration that people loved more than my sermon.
Okay.
But Brad, he loves the fact that I did. I talked to him about it last Friday and kind of apologized. I was like, hey, man, he's like, no, here's the thing. I love it because everyone thinks I'm a chump, so no one will ever want me on the deacon board or the elder board or anything. It's perfect. So it's totally Brad's, He's a snarky as I am.
Rewards for sure,
Exactly. But yeah, Brad and I we just have a back and forth on that.
But there's that tension in the Christian walk of like our motives for what we're doing, and there does seem to be a motive of reward that Jesus puts out there for obedience and faithfulness. But then that seems self-serving, so that is a touch point,
It is. I think the main way that I've thought about it, and I don't know, you can tell me your thoughts too, is I feel like the way to view that is that the rewards are real and true and meant to motivate. But it's not contractual. And it's not like, all right, God, I signed on the dotted line. Don't give me what's coming to me. I don't think that's the attitude that we should have. It's in the same way relationship with our kids, where it's like, no, obey me and things are going to go good for you. You know what I mean? Yeah. Sort of an idea where it's definitely relationship based, and it's definitely based on not, in other words, we run the risk of becoming like the older son with the prodigal son, where it's like, God, I've served you, haven't given me a goat.
Yeah.
Where it's like, well, what's that attitude? We don't want to have that attitude towards God.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not contractual. That's how I think of it. Where it's like, all right, God, I've done my part of the equation. Now you do yours. The bottom line is, there is nothing on our side of the equation that's going to come close to how much we get.
Yeah.
So it's kind of ridiculous to try and set it up contractually with God.
Right.
Anyway, we always get way more.
And anything we have is His.
It's His
ability,
right.
Talent. It's all from God.
It's all from God anyway. So that's what I mean. That's kind of how I've tried to think about it.
Yeah.
First off, that's why when we say we're getting way more out of it than we ever put into it. And Steve hammered this home. Steve Fernandez, to go back to him. The bottom line is God is never your beneficiary. He is always your benefactor. And that's the idea that we need to keep in mind. And so now we're at a place, being Christians, where we actually can please the Lord, which is super fascinating to me anyway, as I've been thinking about it. It's either 1st or 2nd Peter that talks about, as Christians, we should in all ways seek how to please the Lord. And so now we have a neat opportunity as Christians where we can actually please the Lord. Where the world is slavishly trying to please whatever their God is so that they can get something out of him. Where we can please the Lord from a position of strength, which is He's already happy. Now, whatever we do is just increasing His joy, whatever that means.
Yeah. That's
crazy to me to think about, that we in some way make the Lord happy.
Yeah.
And that's such a grace gift from Him. And that it's not a slavish thing. We're not just trying to get something out of Him for it. It's just more joy. So anyway, that's my thought on that.
Good. I like it. All right, let's talk about you work at Pace Supply, and what I've appreciated about you, and it's not. I don't think you set out to do this, but you've kind of become like Pace's pastor in the sense that a lot of people look to you for spiritual guidance or just encouragement, and even when you preach on Sundays, like people from Pace will come, and because you've earned that respect in their life to. Yeah, I want to go support Rhett,
Right.
So talk about that a little bit, because I think. And I want you to talk too about that idea that if I'm not a paid pastor, then I'm not a pastor. Like that professional view sometimes we have of pastoral ministry.
Well, first off, I do want to say that I think there is a super advantage to being able to dedicate X amount of hours, 40 hours, let's just call it, because that's a standard work week, to the ministry. Where you're able to spend a certain amount of hours of that studying. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
So I don't want to downplay that by talking about what we're talking about. So in other words, you're appreciated. Aragon's appreciated. What you guys do is appreciated. But yeah, I think that first off, that's definitely a Reformation ideal, right? There is no higher calling.
Mm-hmm.
If you're working
so getting away from like the Catholic Church, Pope, bishops, the hierarchy of this, like kind of the Bible doesn't talk about that.
Right. And in fact, I think one idea that Jesus is calling out is that idea. Remember when we set aside the Word of God for these traditions that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And he calls people out for that when they can't take care of their parents because whatever savings they have is Corbin. It's given to God.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, that you're disregarding what the Word of God actually says. So I think that we do that sometimes. We don't mean to. We don't realize it, but we just have to be thoughtful of it. But that idea of me being the pastor at Pace Supply came from a friend that was, I was working with there, and I was just invited him to church. And
what's his name?
Jerry.
Not Lance.
No. I work with like 10 Lances.
I know, it's so weird.
It's so funny. But
it's a cool name.
It was, it's all right. No, it's a good name because it's both a noun and a verb. Because you can lance something, like you can lance a boil.
Yeah.
You can anyway.
Yeah. It is a noun and a verb. That's
it is
good.
a noun and a verb.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah. So anyway,
I'm gonna verb and noun today.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
But I was encouraging him to come. I was actually saying, I think you'd like my pastor Lance. I think you'd like him. And he's like, no, RJ, because I go by RJ. No, RJ, you're my pastor. Okay. Yeah. So I just kind of took it to heart. Like, all right, I'll be the pastor at Pace Supply.
Yeah. And
I'll do my job, the best of my ability. I'm not going to skirt work. I don't think that's, a good thing to spend, a half hour in the break room when you should be at your desk.
Yeah.
Doing things. But, so I just took that to heart and tried to minister to people. And that guy ended up becoming a Christian by God's grace, which is totally awesome because it's one of those things where I just got to be a part of it, and I like that because it was me. He was sitting right next to me. My desk was here, his was here. Another believer's desk was right over here, and he was just watching us. And then his mom invited him to church, and so he went, and he got saved. But it was this total thing that God was bringing all that together into his life, and it's just neat to see how God authoring someone's salvation, right before your eyes, so to speak, which is it's really fun to see it all play out. And just be whatever small role I had in it. I don't feel like I had much of a role.
Right.
But he tells me that he was watching. He was watching me, and he was watching my friend Jeff. And he was watching us.
Yeah.
So it's like, that to me.
And he still came to Christ.
I know, seriously. It's the
amazing.
truth.
Yeah.
It's the truth. It's the truth.
Yeah, cool. So just about that mindset though of well, I guess maybe we talked about it with that idea that we're all ministers. Whether you're getting paid to be a pastor or whether you're a mailman or a fireman or a police officer,
right.
We're all ministers.
Right. And to not downplay that.
Right.
That's something that Steve Fernandez, again, so much comes back to his influence in my life. You have a voice with certain people.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, people will listen to you.
Yeah.
And you don't know where that is. Maybe it is at the mail service or at a construction crew or at Chick-fil-A or whatever, wherever you're working.
Yeah.
God's going to bring those people around and you can be a witness there.
And even like the concept of, is my job of counseling, praying, studying, is that any more sacred than a guy that's mowing lawns or a guy that's picking up your trash today? Like we're all doing it. Hopefully, it's under the Lord and serving the Lord.
Yep.
Somebody's got to do that work. So it's all part of the creation of subduing the earth and taking care of this place, and it's cool.
Yeah, when you think about it, Adam's first job wasn't sermon making, right? It was gardening.
Yeah.
Gardening.
Are you just thinking of this right now, or is this something that you thought about before?
I just thought of that right now.
That's a good thought.
Right? I don't know.
Great. All right, maybe we'll think of more stuff. Okay,
Yeah,
so want to talk about homeschooling a little bit?
Sure.
Because you guys have decided to do homeschooling.
Right. Well, we had so many jean skirts. We just thought we had to. We just thought we had to.
These guys are all homeschooled too, so this is going to be great.
Did Jake wear jean skirts?
No, I've seen those families.
No, it's yeah. No, I shouldn't even joke like that. See what this makes me say? See, why do you make me say these things?
You know, there's people laughing out there, and then there's people wondering what are these guys talking about. Okay, so
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
going.
exactly.
Homeschooling.
Yeah. So homeschooling, for us, first off, Julie's a trained teacher. So she's taught in the schools a Christian school, so she's taught in this classroom for 10 years.
Yeah.
So she's well trained, she's got tons of experience, blah, 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 blah. So it's funny because college students...
She's taught you too.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
Sit there and work on my penmanship. But it's funny because if we have college students over and they want to see the homeschool room and they look at it and they were homeschooled, like some of the students, and they'll be like, this is a classroom.
Yeah. No, you got it.
So Julie's got it dialed in. We got
academy going on.
Right. Yeah. We got whiteboards and monitors, and she's up there doing lessons, and she lesson plans, and so it's like it's not like your typical. And I don't want to say typical. That's rude. But what I mean is that perception of homeschool can be less sometimes, and not that it has to be like this to be true school. But the idea is, my wife's really rigorous with them and all of that.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of advantages to it. I mean. I want to see our kids raised right, and I want to maintain our influence on them as long as possible. And so there's little benefits that we see. For one, and it doesn't matter what school you go to, kids learn about cliques and groupiness at any school. And not that that's necessarily totally wrong. You have your friends. It's not like I want to discourage people from having friends. A group of friends. I mean, Jesus had, his 3 and then the 12 and whatever. Yeah. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but one of the things that I love about my girls is they have no concept of popularity. Just none. Whoever wants to hang out with them, let's go play. Yeah, let's go to the park, whoever you are. I don't care that you're not the cool girl because they don't know what a cool girl is. Yeah. Right now. Yeah. So they don't have a concept of that from not being in public school, which I like.
How old are the girls now?
They're 8. They're going to be 9 here in June.
Okay.
So that's
Rhett has twin girls.
Yeah, twin girls. Yeah. So that's something I like seeing them develop, where they really are open and accepting of people, and they're not worried about any kind of coolness factor that I feel like every kid seems to develop a little bit of, just in that kind of group environment. Yeah. So that's definitely an advantage. I feel like too. There's something you got to say on that?
No.
Is that my phone?
That is.
Something else too, I feel like there's more access to resources. Well, and part of that's Julie. All of this is Julie, really. But Julie is definitely fighting for all those resources for our kids. Where sometimes, especially in public school, they can get lost a little bit in that. And, there's a little bit of a mass production when it comes to public school, where they're just working to get these kids out of school rather than really working to get them to learn and become lifelong learners and all that. So I think there's advantages there, and really, and it's not for everybody. So I don't say any of this judgmentally at all, but I really do see an advantage too of having it be coming from the parents too. Although sometimes there's a disadvantage too.
Do you think if you had boys, this would be going as well?
It might be going better.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I'll tell you, Julie's strong. Like I think she'd be a good mom for boys.
I wouldn't mess with Julie.
No, heck no.
Yeah, no.
No, one time I shouldn't tell the story.
Tell me.
Okay.
What time she did what?
Well, she went to Israel for IBEX,
Yeah.
And they hid a bunch of clocks in the boys' rooms and set them at different alarm times.
I heard coronavirus is afraid of Julie.
Yeah, it's probably true. Yeah, when she gets into the pool, she doesn't get wet. The water gets Julied. Yeah. No, but she.
Poor Julie.
Yeah, exactly. So they did this little kind of harmless practical joke to the boys. Well, the boys, you know how guys are. We go like 10 times over it. So they went in and they like abducted all the girls and they just did all this stuff to them. They couldn't get Julie out of the room.
No.
Dude, they had her like pinned down. They ripped her earring out of her ear, like on accident, because she's fighting so hard against this.
Yes.
Where it's just like, yeah, she's got some spunk. I think that people don't quite realize when they meet her.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, I think she would be a good mom for boys even.
Yeah.
And she's a great mom for the girls. But yeah, I think sometimes boys need a good mom, like a good strong mom. And I think girls need a good strong dad. I mean, that's just my pet theory. Obviously, there's no thus saith the Lord on this. But I just feel like having that opposite sex help you understand, and I think it just helps. So I think she'd be a great mom for boys. She's pretty strong.
Yeah.
I think she'd be a good mom.
And you think you'd still do the homeschooling?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Are you guys going to homeschool all the way through high school, or what's
we just take it year by year.
Okay.
Again, it's that resources thing. If something gets beyond what Julie feels like she can actually accomplish with the girls, we want them, our goal is education. And so we want them to get the best education that they can. And not that anyone else doesn't, but the point is that's why we take it year by year.
Yeah.
So as it maybe gets beyond Julie, we'll look at something else.
Yeah.
But there's so many resources out there these days. There's just so much out there.
And I appreciate our churches. Like we haven't really had any schisms or anything because this is the right way to educate your child. Or this is the right way. Like we've given people freedom, I feel like, to say, hey, if what's best is for you is to homeschool, what's best for you is Christian school, what's best for you is public school. Lord bless you. All of them have their pros, all of them have their cons, right? So, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it is. And it is true. And it's the bottom line is to not be judgmental about it, about any of it. So, yeah. There's, like you said, there's pros and cons.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I do want my girls to get a little roughed up, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I kind of wish, man, should we put them in that kind of environment where they would maybe get their feelings hurt and realize what that's like? You know, that can be a strengthening thing. You know, you can't hide them from every adversity in their life. So, you know, stuff to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there are pluses.
Some of the social interaction.
Yeah, like one of the things that Julie talks about, and she nips it as much as she can. But one of the things about homeschoolers in particular that's difficult, because she experienced it on both sides. She was a classroom teacher, and she would have people bring in their kids that had been homeschooled for the last 3 years, and now they're in the classroom, you know? And she's like, they have no classroom skills. Like, whenever they have a question, they just start talking. You know, they don't raise their hand, they don't wait their turn. That's just it. Exactly. Yeah. So she tries to do that with the girls. Yeah. You know, to really get them, you know, in that mode of, try and have some, you know.
There's two of them, so but it's...
Right. Yeah, exactly. But still, even then, you know.
Just bring like cardboard cutouts of the kids.
Exactly. No, it's Johnny's turn now. Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. But there's that and
yeah, cool. You still got 32 flavors in your freezer?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Julie's gonna kill me. But yes, no, we've kind of have thrown some out. You know, with the fires, we lost a lot of ice cream because we had the power shut off, and oddly enough, that wasn't covered by insurance. But yeah. So
why so many flavors? Why?
We're
going to talk about coronavirus next.
Okay, but no, you're going to get me killed. Julie's going to kill me.
Like I said, I know where to go.
You do, you know it. So,
my wife... have to do one of these podcasts with Julie.
You should, yeah. My wife loves dessert. She loves sweets, you know.
Oh, so it's not you.
What? No.
I bet you like the 32 flavors.
No.
Does she like a lot of different flavors, or does she just like variety?
She likes having variety.
Okay. Because I'm like stuck on mint chip.
Totally, right. No, we have mint chip, yeah. And sometimes she wants a nice bowl of mint chip, but sometimes it's mocha almond fudge. Okay. And sometimes it's Butterfinger. Okay. But sometimes it's Snickers. And sometimes it's vanilla.
If you could describe your marriage with one flavor of ice cream, what would it be?
Rocky Road.
You were way too fast.
I thought, no, that's just a joke. It would be.
Yeah, say it again. Do it again.
Yeah, exactly. What would it be? An ice cream flavor. I don't know. Mocha almond fudge, maybe?
Okay.
Yeah. I think that would probably describe our marriage. Both like the coffee and
Okay.
a couple of nuts. Just trying to figure this out.
Good. All right. Coronavirus. So we're dealing with every day is a little different. I feel like today is Monday. I feel like today got actually a little smoother than the last 5 days have been so wild.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like today there's a little bit of
normalcy.
Whatever. I mean, at least we kind of know what the next couple of weeks are going to look like as far as what may I don't know.
Yeah,
I
we
don't
don't
know what
know.
the next couple weeks are going to look like, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like we've.
It feels like it's plateaued a little.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So what are your thoughts?
It's hard. I feel like I've gone through. I shared this with Aragon. I feel like I've gone through like the 5 stages of grief with this. Denial and anger, and just because it's a frustrating thing to me. I'd like to pretend that it's probably some kind of righteous frustration, but it's obviously disruptive to our lives. But it's an opportunity for the church for sure. I think, and I kind of want to share this with you and with everyone who will hear it, or who might listen to the podcast. But man, on Thursday night it was the weirdest thing because, I mean, I just do not worry about these things. I mean, that's just my personality. I just don't worry about these things. But it was weird. I went to bed Thursday night, woke up Friday morning at like 2 a.m, just having like a panic attack about this stuff, which it's really just not like me. And I don't know what it was. And it was funny because the next morning, Julie and I were talking, and I told her this, and she thought I was kidding. She thought I was messing around. And I was like, because she knows that's not like me.
Yeah.
And she's like, really? And I was like, no, I really did. It was weird. And I just had to spend time praying, and I don't know what the deal was.
Interesting.
And it's hard too because you hear some Christians are like, well, I'm ready to go. Maybe the coronavirus get me out of here. That's kind of selfish, So let's not. I don't want to be that. I don't want to be on that side of things.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm not this worrywart on the other side of things. So I don't know what the deal was, other than maybe feeling like I have something to lose. I feel what I was worried about as I was praying through it that night was I was worried about my family. I was worried about my girls and my wife and what would it mean if I were gone, and how would they be provided for, and
so you're thinking about like worried for your own life.
Yeah.
Am I going to die of this thing?
Right. And statistically, I mean, it's just not that possible. And then on top of that, I have my theology in which my days are numbered before the Lord. And
right.
It could be that I'm worried about the coronavirus, that I get hit by a bus.
Right.
I mean?
Right. Yeah.
None of it's guaranteed. And that's, I think, one of the opportunities from it is it brings to the forefront of people's mind the precariousness of life. Life is super dangerous. But we build this framework that insulates us from it, whether it's money or whether it's a religious thing or whatever. We build this little cage that we try and keep all that at bay. But none of it's real. The truth is that this is the reality. The reality is we're all a breath away from it being our last and moving into the eternal state. And at least it's on people's minds a little bit, the idea of death. And whether we get over it and we just move on, or if it becomes an opportunity for the church where we can talk about, and tomorrow it may not be the coronavirus, it might be cancer, or tomorrow it might be the flu, or tomorrow it might be whatever. There's danger lurking around every corner.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since Adam and Eve sinned in the garden,
Mm-hmm.
everyone's life is just hanging by a thread, and
Yeah.
it's just there's no guarantee.
Yeah.
No guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we, especially in our society, I mean, think about just a few generations ago. I mean, we had people going to World War One, World War Two, Korea, Vietnam. There were lots of people dying, and there's no nobility in that. I'm not trying to promote that, but just death was very present with people,
Mm-hmm.
it feels like. But it seems like lately it's become distant, and then 2001 really kind of brought it back to light with the 9/11 attacks, where it really brought it back to people's minds. And now I feel like it's, then it was a whole bunch of other things, and now it's this again,
Mm-hmm.
which I feel like we haven't had this kind of reaction, as far as I know, in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Because even the H1N1 or the swine flu or the bird flu or any of those, I don't remember this.
Yeah.
And I remember that correctly. I don't remember it being this
Well,
kind of a shutdown or.
Right. Even what I see different from like 9/11 to now is like 9/11, everybody was like pro-America, loving each other.
Mm-hmm.
We're in this together, and now
It's like a rallying point, yeah.
I see people at the store taking things
Yeah.
of toilet paper away from each other, and
Right,
trying to
right.
call the cops, and
Right.
it's a little different,
It is different, yeah.
Maybe that'll change.
Yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I had a friend who sent out a message via social media. We're out of toilet paper. Can anybody spare some? And it's just because all the stores are out.
Right.
Too.
Yeah.
And it's
yeah.
like, man, it is interesting to see people's response to that.
Yeah.
And it's what we do as people. I think even on non-emergency days, we're just kind of hoarding up stuff for our pleasure to kind of
Yeah.
ease us into life, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's maybe something that we're learning about ourselves. That,
Mm-hmm.
well, hopefully we're learning about ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what they're learning in Italy right now, I watched a little bit today about it, is that they're all quarantined, but what they're realizing is we actually have to work together to get through this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not going to be who gets theirs to be safe. It's how do we work together to
Right.
kind of get through this problem, which I think is good for the church to
Yeah.
lead the way on.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I was thinking about, I'm just rattling around my brain, but I feel like the reason, like even with like the floods and the fires and smoke in the air, it's always like, okay, take days off school, take days off work,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's like 3 weeks off,
Yeah,
and it's
right.
like is that overkill? I don't know, but what I do feel like is our country, and maybe like China and Italy, I don't know, but I'm just speaking for us, we don't know how to rest. And I feel like any little thing is an opportunity to rest because we don't know how to rest. And so I think it's our culture is out of balance from what God says for resting. Taking a day to rest.
Yeah.
I feel like our culture is boom, 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 and now everybody's just stressed, and it's like, oh, I can take a little break.
Yeah, I can never breathe. It's funny you say that. That's an interesting thought. Because, when God sent the Jews to Babylon, the reason why it was 70 years is because they didn't take the Sabbath rests on the land like they should have. So God says, for every year that you didn't give them a Sabbath rest, I'm sending you a year over there, 70 years. Isn't that interesting? You go back and you look at those prophets that were prophesying to them. Because you didn't give the land the rest that I told you to give it, I'll give it the rest.
Yeah.
And I'll send you away for 70 years so it can have its rest.
Interesting.
It's really interesting. So that is interesting, this idea that God sends these calamities sometimes to wake us up. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I think too, and I've done a lot, I listen to a lot of stuff because I'm driving all day. I drive down to see customers and I've got time to listen.
I can always tell when Rhett's been listening to the radio too much.
Yeah. Well, that's talk radio. Yeah, I do have to go on a diet from that because, it gets rough.
Whoa, I thought you were Rhett, not Rush.
Yeah, exactly. I don't listen to Rush. No, not him.
Okay.
Yeah. But I like Rush, but I don't listen to him much. But I was listening to John MacArthur preach on, what were we talking about? The idea of
coronavirus rest,
resting.
God sending.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so MacArthur, because he always makes good points, but he had a really good point about. He was reading this book called Farewell Sermons. It's when the nonconformists in the Church of England wouldn't just follow whatever they had outlined for them. They wanted to preach the gospel. They were called nonconformists.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they were all kicked out of the church. And so this last Sunday, this was the last Sunday that they were going to be allowed to preach, unless they changed their ways. And so it's a book of all these various nonconformists, we know them as Puritan preachers. And this one guy, I don't even remember his name, had a really good point where he's talking to the congregation and he's saying, this is a calamity for the church. But there is infinitely more evil in the slightest sin than in the greatest calamity. And the thought really struck me that we think about calamities because it affects us, but we don't think about sin because it affects God. And so, this is a calamity, but it's worse that we sin. Even the slightest sin is way more evil than this calamity. And that thought is so striking to me because we don't even think that way. We don't even think, I think.
Are you like what Adam did? Like Adam's sin?
Yeah.
How it affected the course of the world.
Or even just his insult to God.
And what our sin does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about what it cost God. He had to slaughter his son to bring us back.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't think we have a view of God and God's holiness or any of that at all. Even in the church, it's really hard to. I hear so much sin preached as you'll be happier if you obey God, and that's true. But I think we just really lose sight of God, on God, and how He is upset about sin, and we're so quick to give ourselves a pass on sin, but we will hold God to task. Where were you on 9/11, God? Where were you every day of your life when you're not acknowledging God at all?
Yeah.
And that really, man, when he said that, it really.
You know what he called the guys that came to arrest Jesus?
No.
Called them sinners. Here comes the sinners.
Interesting.
To arrest me.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So think about that.
Yeah. Because he should not have been arrested, right?
Or betrayed.
Or betrayed or anything.
Yeah.
And but I think we have such a low view of God and such an exalted view of ourselves that and even as a Christian, even as a Christian, I think, man, I just don't even have a concept of the holiness of God. And the classic, thing that we always talk about is that Isaiah 6, is that Isaiah 6 or 3? I think it's 6, where he sees the Lord exalted, and here's the prophet, Isaiah. And he just feels unraveled. He just is done before the holiness of God. So I know one of my weaknesses is for sure not having a high enough view of God. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. One more. You got time, Jake? Yeah, buddy. All right, Martin Luther. Let's talk about Martin Luther.
Oh boy.
Because, here's the deal with podcasts that are kind of fun.
Yes.
People can push pause when they're tired of listening to us and
totally.
pick it back up a little bit.
So they pushed pause a long time ago.
Yeah. So it's Tuesday now, and we're still going. No, I guess people were doing that for my sermon. Like,
that's funny.
They could push pause, and to go do something and then come back. And I'm not thinking of that while I'm preaching. Anyway.
Totally.
So we're talking
the
about
bathroom.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a whole other deal. All right, so Martin Luther. Let's talk Martin Luther.
Sure.
He's had a big impact on you.
Yeah.
When did that first start happening?
Well, I always thought he was a cool dude because he was just outlandish.
I couldn't figure out the difference between Martin Luther King and Martin Luther.
That you and everyone else.
This was education in Forceville. Anyway, so
no, I'll say that to people.
And they're so different.
He took his name. His dad, Martin Luther King Jr.'s dad, took his name, Martin Luther.
Okay.
Because of the Reformation and all that.
Yeah.
So that's where the name comes from. His name was something else, but he had his name legally changed. Martin Luther King.
Junior?
Junior, yeah. His name was something else, and then his dad had it changed to Martin Luther King.
We're gonna need a fact checker on this podcast.
That's my understanding.
No, let's roll with it. It's fine.
Okay, Jake, do you have your phone? Look at that. That's my understanding of it. That's historically my understanding of it. Okay, I could be totally wrong.
Okay.
Jake will embarrass me here in a minute if I am. But he was such an interesting character. So readable, so quotable. All the quotes I ever saw from him.
We're talking about Martin Luther.
Martin Luther.
Yeah.
Every quote I ever read from him was just so much fun. It was interesting. It piqued your curiosity. It got you thinking. I mean, he was just...
Were you expecting like more dryness from an older theologian? And like, you're like, whoa, this guy actually talks about farting. You know, like,
right, or pooping.
Maybe that.
Yeah, no, not necessarily. I had no expectations.
Okay.
And I just would be exposed to these little quotes over time and be like, wow, he said that? Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And then just diving deeper in and deeper in and deeper in and deeper in and kind of trying to unravel the complexities
of him.
Okay. Because
he's an interesting dude.
He's an interesting dude.
Yeah.
I think that I don't think there's many people that you can say almost single-handedly changed the course of the world. And I really think he did, if you look at it. I mean, it's a big statement to say.
There's like 10 guys.
There were, but he was
10 men.
He was the tip of the spear.
Well,
so to speak.
Jesus maybe.
No, absolutely. That's why I'm saying it's very, Jesus, obviously. Moses, maybe.
Abraham.
Yeah, right. All these people did, but I'm saying, just in modern times, as we get, he really is
God
kind of
used him, in pretty awesome ways.
Pretty awesome ways.
Like
he's
one
kind of
person,
right,
to be that much of an influence. Worldwide.
Yeah. I mean, he was like the fulcrum of the change between old world to new world, and it's really interesting to think about. I mean, there's very few people that they can hang that on.
Okay.
And he's definitely one of them.
So, like, what made a guy like that tick? That's kind of...
Yeah. And there's a lot of things there. First off, he was...
Did you get the fact checker on that?
I did. That's correct.
That's right.
So he was... Martin Luther King Jr. was born Michael King Jr.
Michael what?
Michael King Jr.
Michael King Jr.
Son of Michael King Sr. And it was Michael King Sr. who changed his name to Martin Luther King.
Oh.
And then his son followed suit.
Okay, so the dad changed his name to Martin Luther King, and then his son, he changed his son's name.
No, his son did it as well.
Yeah, after Martin,
Michael King changed it.
Yeah, Michael King Jr. became Martin Luther King Jr.
Of his own.
Yes.
After his father changed it first.
Wow.
And fun fact, his father is also a Baptist pastor.
Another Baptist pastor.
There you go.
Yeah.
He changed the world.
Yeah.
But the thing, though, to me about Martin Luther is I feel like he's also one of the most misunderstood characters. And myself included. Because all the brash comments that he would make, all that, almost it looked like bravado where he was just punching people in the nose all the time. That wasn't him. That wasn't who I've come to know of him. Obviously, I mean, I'm a little bit separated in time from him, 500 years. But just as I just get to know him more and more and read his own writings and this and that, and just to see his warmth of heart, warmth of spirit, what was made him popular in the day was that he was just such a welcoming, warm person. People loved just being around him because he wasn't. People just have this idea that he was just sitting there like thinking up insults to people, because his writings towards the Pope were so harsh, and so pointed, and so that people think that's how he talked around the dinner table.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah. Pass the potatoes, you whatever. I don't know, but that's not how he was. He was very warm. He was very caring. He was very patient. Again, things that you don't think of, well, Germans in general as being patient, but Martin Luther in particular, being patient. He was very patient, but very direct. And the other thing,
I felt like the movie about Luther portrayed him that way.
It did.
Feel like that?
I feel like that too. Yeah, I feel like it did. Yeah, and it portrayed him as a little bit self-doubting, and I think he had a little bit of that going on in him.
Yeah.
Because he definitely had that prayer before. Because you know when he was before in his trial, the diet of worms, that trial, he asked for a day, and he recorded his prayer that night, and it's pretty heart-wrenching. You should see if you can find it. It's good.
Yeah.
Because he's really got to muster his strength to do this. People don't realize how that was. So the other thing, so when people try to imitate that part of Luther, that punch you in the nose type of thing, it just rubs me the wrong way. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like Martin Luther earned the right to do that because everybody wanted to kill him. Yeah. And they legally could, yeah. And there was no repercussions. Yeah. So you're doing that from the safety of your soft pillows and whatever else, and I don't know, it rubs me the wrong way. Luther did it when it counted.
Yeah.
And he really was fighting for the truth, and he really was, but even in his fight for the truth, he was so gentle. Like, let me just give you one example, or two maybe. All right. I'll give you two examples. First off, he was not for removing all the idols from the church, which is shocking to me. So, yeah, keep up the statue of Peter, keep the set. What? His idea was, no, we will keep preaching the gospel, and eventually this stuff will just get washed out. Yeah. So he wasn't this iconoclast that was just wanting to destroy everything that these people were doing. He knew. And it's good. That was awesome. And then the second thing was, when he came to the conclusion that...
It's kind of like us now, right? Like, how do we fix things? Like,
right.
There's so many things wrong. Right?
Yeah. Do we just go in and start breaking things?
Right. But what we know will change everything is the gospel. Like, yes. That's what does it.
And Luther lived that. But we only see the brash side of it. Yeah. Because that's fun, right? Yeah. Calling the Pope a whore and a sodomite. That's fun to read. That's some good reading. Yeah. You know, but it's not like, that's not what he did every day.
Right.
So, so there was that. And then
he had some kind of rough views on the Jews too, right? Or am I misunderstanding?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a misunderstanding there. Number one, first off, he did write harsh things about the Jews. There's some lessons to be learned from that. Number one, don't write something that's going to be repeated in 400 years by the next Adolf Hitler. Yeah. Be a little more circumspect. Two is, he wrote that way about everybody. That's not necessarily an excuse, but it's not like it was only the Jews that he wrote that way about. Okay. And third, he wasn't anti-Semitic. It was, if any Jew that wanted to become a Christian and join his church, it wasn't an ethnic thing at all, like how we see it today. Okay. It was all religious, where it was like, no, you are denying Christ, you are denying the gospel, and he's your savior. He's a Jew. I worship a Jew, and here you won't accept him. And he really thought, when he rediscovered the gospel, he thought there was going to be a revival amongst the Jews in Germany. Mm-hmm. He really thought that. Mm-hmm. Because he's like, why would they leave Judaism for Catholicism? It's the exact same legalistic system. Why would they want it? I can see why they're rejecting it. And he was so excited, and then they rejected the gospel, and that torqued him to no end. Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, so
that was the first one. The second one, and the other thing too about that, the racism thing, Luther did not invent anti-Semitism. You know, just a few years previously, they kicked out every Semitic person from all of Europe. So there was already, that is like the century before. That's where I think...
And just so people have a context, we're talking 1400s?
1400s, yeah. They kicked out every Jew, or maybe it was the 14th century, so maybe the 1300s. Okay. They kicked out every Jew or any Semitic person from Europe. They said, you got to get out of here. And they just really tried to push them out. And I think that's where the Ashkenazi Jews come from? There's a group of Spanish Jewish people that migrated back to, and they're some of the first that go back to Palestine at the time. Okay. Anyway, so it's not like he invented it. I think that needs to be clarified too. Anti-Semitism.
He gets labeled as that?
A little bit, yeah. But it's been around in Europe for centuries and centuries and centuries. So, And not that it justifies it, right? I mean, I'm not trying to justify it. I just give it a little bit of historical context, you know. But anyway, and the second thing that I feel like Luther did that was super gentle with the people was he saw that the laity should drink the wine as well as have the bread. And if you know your traditional Catholic view, I think pre-Vatican II, I think they changed it at Vatican II. I don't know all my Catholic doctrines, but the laity only gets the bread, and then the priest drinks the wine for the whole congregation. Well, in his study, Luther realized, no, this is communion. It is for all of God's people to have all of what God offers to his people, which is bread and wine, to remember what Christ has done for us. But imagine being a Roman Catholic who's never had the wine on your lips. Well, while Luther is in hiding, translating the Bible into German, in the New Testament, it's the Wartburg, he's in the castle hiding out and he's translating. Well, one of his buddies in Wittenberg is telling people, no, you will have both elements or you'll have none of it. And he's forcing them, like, no, you have to do this. Mm. And that pissed Luther off. Mm. And his argument to him was like, we have been in the languages, the Greek languages, for 3 years. And we're just kind of coming to these conclusions now. And we expect them to turn on a dime? Mm. They've been steeped in this for their whole life and their whole family and everything. Do it. No, if they want to just have the bread, that's fine. And to think too, like nobody sees that side of Luther where he was willing to just give people room to grow in their faith and understanding of what God has for them and to really allow the Holy Spirit to work in people. And that to me has been encouraging as I get to know Martin, a few hundred years after his life, just to see that progression. Because as a young man, all that brashness was fun and it's good reading and all of that, but just to see his side of really caring about people.
And you went.
Yeah, I went to Germany with Ligonier.
Yeah.
For
talk about that.
Oh, it was awesome. Yeah. Just get to go and see, see the Wartburg Castle where he translated, and to see his home, and see the places where he was born and what his life was like, and yeah, it was interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, it was neat.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. We covered a lot of ground today. I've got a time on how much we've been together. Do you know how long we've been together?
1 hour and 15 minutes.
1 hour and 25.
Ooh, yikes.
You're close.
All right, yeah.
But I thought it went pretty quick.
Yeah, it felt good.
Good.
I hope people get something out of it. I don't know what people are going to get out of hearing us chitty chat, but
yeah.
No.
All right.
Well, cool. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's good to be here.